What happened is Walt left before me, and he never goes directly to the plane. He's either in the motorcade or when he goes there with the boss, which the former president. I left Mar-a-Lago. I texted him, hey, I'm on my way. He followed me. He pulled out and got behind me. We got to the airport. I ended up loading all the luggage I had, and he had a bunch of boxes.
You noticed that he had boxes?
Oh, yeah. They were the boxes that were in the indictment, the white banker's boxes. That's what I remember loading.
That was Brian Butler, a longtime Mar-a-Lago employee who is described as a central witness in the case involving Trump's handling of classified documents. And now he's speaking out, and he doesn't believe that the case against Donald Trump and the co-conspirators in that case amounts to a so-called witch hunt, something that Donald Trump has been alleging. Now, Butler is referenced as Trump employee number 5 several times in the classified documents indictment, which is being prosecuted by special counsel Jack Smith. Now, before I get to more on Butler, Cenk, I wanted to bring you in because we've heard various stories about co-conspirators taking plea deals, coming out, cooperating with prosecutors, and essentially speaking out against Donald Trump. I haven't seen any of them do an interview quite like Butler has, and so he felt the need to come out and just kind of clear his name before the public and let them know about his cooperation in this case.
Yeah, so I think the central question in the entire election is, are enough independents going to believe that Donald Trump is a bona fide criminal and hence they cannot vote for him? And this story has a lot to do with that because this guy is very credible, but are they going to listen? That's the issue. And I don't want to ignore the obvious, the elephant in the room here. Brian Butler is obviously the doppelganger for Brian Stelter.
No, don't do that. Don't do that to poor Stelter, Jesus Christ.
No, okay, look, whatever, I live in the biggest glass house there is. Anyway, just kidding, but back to the importance of the story, for sure, because if you believe this guy, then Donald Trump is not just a criminal, but a bit of a dangerous criminal. If you don't believe him, I don't know what you do believe. Do you believe in objective reality? I don't know, let's find out.
So first, let's get to know Butler a little better. Who is he and what kind of relationship did he have with Donald Trump? He actually worked at Mar-a-Lago for decades. Butler gave testimony to federal investigators that informed crucial portions of last year's criminal obstruction charges against Trump and his 2 co-defendants, Walt Nauta, and personal aide to Trump, who was a personal aide to Trump, and Carlos de Oliveira, a property manager at Mar-a-Lago, who had been Butler's closest friend until recently. The 2 are no longer speaking. The 2 also decided to take 2 completely different paths in how they are handling this case, with Butler deciding to have his own non-Trump attorneys representing him, and with de Oliveira kind of going in the listen to Trump, do what Trump says and what his lawyers want route. So obviously very different. Now, Butler, who was employed at Mar-a-Lago for 20 years, has spoken repeatedly with investigators, according to CNN, paying for his own attorney and breaking with the orbit around Trump that he knows so well. Now, Butler told CNN that he unknowingly helped Nauta deliver boxes of classified information from Mar-a-Lago to the former president's plane in June of 2022, the same day that Trump and his attorney were meeting with the Justice Department at Mar-a-Lago about the classified documents, right? So he's gonna meet with the Justice Department at Mar-a-Lago about the classified documents. On that same day, according to Butler, Trump is moving documents around. And that day, on June 3rd, specifically of 2022, Butler received what he remembers as a strange request from Nauta, that's the way that he describes it, who wanted to know if he could borrow an Escalade from the car service that Butler ran for Mar-a-Lago. Trump and his family were apparently about to fly to New Jersey that day for the summer. And it was typically Butler and his valets who handled getting their luggage onto the plane. And so it was an unusual request by Nauta, according to Butler, for the car, because Nauta typically did not handle moving luggage and asked Butler for the car in a weird, guarded way. That is what Butler is saying. Butler says that Nauta and de Oliveira loaded up the vehicle before driving it to West Palm Beach Airport. Butler arrived with his car, or his own car, filled with Trump's family luggage. And then he helped not load Trump's plane with the luggage, as well as bankers' boxes of documents that were in the Escalade.
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. We do. You know why? Because of you. Paid membership on YouTube makes all the difference. Hit the join button below and you become the hero that sustains us.
So Butler says that he didn't realize what was in those banker boxes, and he's about to address that in the next clip. Let's watch.
And did you have any idea at the time that there was potentially US national security secrets in those boxes?
No clue. No, I had no clue. I mean, we were just taking them out of the Escalade, piling them up. I remember they were all stacked on top of each other, and then we're lifting them up to the pilots.
How many boxes was it?
You know, they asked me in the interview, and I believe it was 10 to 15.
And when you look back on that now, what do you?
Well, I had no clue until probably the end of June. There's a few different things that happened that kind of opened my eyes to, something's going on here.
So you get that unusual request. Did you ever think to yourself, why were there so many boxes at Mar-a-Lago?
For me, I'm just thinking, the former president, he has a lot of stuff he likes to lug around with him.
So look, obviously Butler has an interest in everything that he is saying there, meaning he wants the public to be under the perception that he, yes, helped to move those boxes, but he didn't know what those boxes contained. This is definitely helping him potentially turn public opinion in his favor. And I don't know whether or not to trust what he is saying about his own involvement, Cenk, but it is very clear that he's coming out to make a distinction between himself and the two other co-conspirators, Nada and De Oliveira, in regard to how those documents were handled and what the individuals knew about what was in those bankers' boxes.
Yeah, so you have to be able to separate out what you think of the person overall and what you think of what they're saying right now. So for example, Brian Butler worked with Donald Trump for over 20 years at Mar-a-Lago. So some of you might then say, well then, okay, I don't trust him because it's not like Trump became a bad guy overnight. He's been a terrible person this whole time, and meanwhile this guy's been working with him, etc. You can say, well, look, he didn't stand up for his friends. They were all willing to lie to the federal law enforcement, etc. But he kind of threw them under the bus by not lying along with them, and maybe he's trying to protect himself, etc. I understand all that, but that's not really relevant to us in terms of other than how it informs the question of is he telling the truth today, right? So he could be a terrible guy, he could be an angel, but I don't care about that. I care about this. So how do you know if he's telling the truth or not? Number one, everything he says matches along with the testimony that you see from the others. So they talk about, you see the pictures of people moving boxes. He says they were moving boxes, same day, right? They have an account of trying to erase the tape at Mar-a-Lago that has been corroborated by one of the other witnesses, and the others are denying, but have no factual basis to say it didn't happen. They acknowledge they talked on that day, they tried to go after the tape that day, but they were saying for innocent reasons, etc.
Right.
So my point is, here's a guy who definitely knows Trump and is in his inner circle. He's not some rando that walked by and the deep state recruited him, etc. Right? Number two is his story matches all of the other stories. And if you think, well, they were all acting fishy and trying to erase the tape at Mar-a-Lago for innocent reasons, that seems a lot less likely, okay? And so if you're on that side and you're gonna believe whatever Trump says, okay, there's nothing I can do to help you anyway. But if you're on the side of, hey, I'm not interested in politicizing this, I'm not interested in Trump is guilty because I don't like him, Trump is innocent because I do like him, but I just wanna know what actually happened.
Right.
His story is enormously credible. He's saying it, matching every other story and explaining in a very logical way why he would care. And one of the things that he says, and I take this there's two parts of this. He says about Anthony Pratt, the Australian businessman, a really wealthy businessman, that Trump told a secret about the Russian submarines to, and about their nukes, which is one of the top secrets we have in America. Butler says he overheard that, and then he thought, oh my God, this guy's sharing top secret information because he wants people to be members at Mar-a-Lago. And that's crazy.
Quite a perk for membership.
Yeah, and that's really, really bad. Now you could say, no, I don't believe him. I think that he's saying that he's outraged today, but only because the FBI raided his house and he's worried about himself. I don't know. I don't know if he was genuinely outraged or not genuinely outraged. But is it true, the story that he's conveying? Yeah, because we have it confirmed by Pratt and others.
Right.
So, and now why do you think Trump's telling Pratt about it? One, you could say, yeah, he's got verbal diarrhea. Well, number one, we probably shouldn't have a president who can't keep his mouth shut about our classified information, let alone taking it home, let alone, by the way, the boxes they loaded on and went to New Jersey, we never got back.
Right.
So where the hell is he hiding those? But especially if you believe he's doing it just to get the $200,000 membership from all these guys, it makes it extra odious. But either way, deeply illegal and should not have happened. He shouldn't have told Pratt, he shouldn't have taken those boxes from the White House, and he shouldn't still be hiding those boxes.
It's so crazy because what stands out to me about this case more than anything is how Trump had so many opportunities to just hand over the documents and no one's gonna prosecute him, right? Just, we know you have the documents. Okay, he hands over some boxes. Are these all the documents? Yes, these are all the documents. I handed everything over. Oh God, no, they're not all the documents. You're still holding on to more. Like, he can't help himself. He is his own, Trump is his own worst enemy, both rhetorically because he can't keep his mouth shut, but also through his own actions. Even when he's given a long leash, when he's told by federal authorities, listen, this will all be over as soon as you hand over the documents, and he still, again, can't help himself. He can't hand over those documents for whatever reason, and it just makes no sense to me.
Look, there's gradations of Republicans and even of MAGA. But if you're in the deep end of MAGA and you think that Trump is untouchable, then you're not gonna care about any of this, right? But for those of you that are not at the deep end, guys, if you're part of MAGA or you're a Republican, aren't you super frustrated that he keeps hurting your cause?
I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, like, okay, let's say you think he's being targeted. In that scenario, he should be even more careful because then they're gonna smear not just him, but you guys and the entire movement. But instead of being careful, he's like, I'm gonna grab/steal a bunch of documents from the White House. And after I get caught and they ask me for the documents, at that point, if I'm MAGA, I'm like, oh, for God's sake, just give back the documents. If you give back the documents, they're not gonna be able to charge you. Even if they charged you, that's gonna be easily dismissed. Everybody's gonna say, brother, you asked for the documents, he gave it back. What else do you want,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
And that's the same thing Biden did. That's the same thing Mike Pence did. They asked for the documents, you give it back. There's no case there. But he refuses. He didn't do it then. He didn't do it the second time around. He had his lawyers lie. He had all of the people that work at Mar-a-Lago lie. He had them try to erase the tape.
Yep.
And he's still holding on to boxes. The guy's like, if you're MAGA, you should be 10 times more upset at Trump than we are because he's absolutely destroying your cause.
So a few other claims by Butler in these CNN interviews. So apparently Butler was also a witness in the room while Trump was having several conversations on basically how De Oliveira and Nada should skirt federal authorities. So De Oliveira told Butler, for instance, about Nada traveling to Palm Beach in late June of 2022, at a time when Nada and De Oliveira were allegedly interested in deleting surveillance tapes of a storage room where the boxes had been kept at the club, according to the indictment. Butler recalls that De Oliveira, remember, De Oliveira was a really close friend of his. So this whole debacle has destroyed their friendship, but he was very, very close with him. They lived very close to one another. It seems like in the same gated community, but I wanted to give you that context so you understand the close relationship the two had. Now, Butler recalls that De Oliveira told him that Nada would be visiting. Then a day later, De Oliveira warned Butler that Nada's visit should be kept secret. De Oliveira told Butler that Nada was interested in learning about how surveillance footage from the club would be saved. Another oddity to Butler, he says. So to him, it was pretty clear that they were looking to tamper with evidence and attempt to erase the surveillance.
Yeah.
De Oliveira, by the way, has been charged with lying to federal investigators who accuse him of repeatedly denying seeing or knowing anything about the boxes of documents at Mar-a-Lago, despite personally moving them himself. He has pleaded not guilty. And in regard to any statements from any of the others involved in this case, no one wanted to give CNN a statement except for an attorney representing de Oliveira, John Irving, who said in a statement, quote, "We look forward to hearing more about Mr. Butler's version of events when he is under oath and subject to penalty of perjury in the courtroom where that belongs, and we decline to try this case in the media." I'm looking forward to his testimony along with the testimony of others in this case as well, if it gets to that point.
Oh, 100%. So I'll end on the last couple of things that you just mentioned there. Number one, I'm looking forward to Donald Trump's testimony because Donald Trump could easily make, well, not in this case, but in the other case, well, I love his testimony in this case too. Why were you trying to erase the tape? What's in the boxes? Where are they? In New Jersey, my guess is he will not testify. In the January 6th trial, the one in Georgia and then the federal one as well, I'm really looking forward to his testimony because MAGA, you should be looking forward to it more than anyone. Because if he proves that the election was stolen, he's not guilty in those cases. Period, the cases are over, right? So I'm sure you're all on pins and needles waiting for him to prove it because they have all the evidence, right? You know too that he doesn't have any evidence. Okay, now back to Butler. Look, guys, I want to be super clear here. He didn't say, I know what was on the tapes and I know they were trying to erase it. He just said they were looking into saving or erasing and it was really weird. It was very unusual. We don't normally talk about saving or deleting these tapes.
Right.
So we're not saying that he has the smoking gun on Trump coming to him and saying, erase the tapes, they have illegal material on them. No, he's giving you context for it. But it is persuasive to me because why are you talking about saving or deleting the tapes when you never ever talk about it? So it is interesting testimony. And finally, the other thing that I found persuasive about Butler was, he said, look, guys, Trump, if you're working with him and it's outside of politics, etc., none of these issues ever come up. You know, he seems like he got along really well with Trump, and de Oliveira was his best friend, and they loved working at Mar-a-Lago, and he started working there when he was a really young guy, and he built a business around it and stuff. So it's not like he hates Trump at all.
He's in his like early 40s.
Yeah, and he's been working there for 20 years, so he started out super young there. But he said one of the things that soured him on Trump here at the end is that he always asks other people to sacrifice themselves, like Butler's friends, de Oliveira and Nada, etc. And he's like, but he knows. He said, Butler says, I know that Trump knows that he did it, and I know that he's lying about this whole thing being a witch hunt. And it might not ruin his life, but he's going to ruin these guys' lives.
I mean, he certainly already has ruined the lives of others who were willing to carry out what Trump had asked of them, right? I mean, for some reason, I think of Jenna Ellis first because Jenna Ellis is so bitter about the fact that she's been indicted in the election interference case. And she really only has herself to blame. I mean, it's hard to believe that after losing literally dozens of court cases, she was still under the impression that the election had been stolen from Trump. But all of these people are facing criminal indictments. You have former friends and personal lawyers of Donald Trump already serving time in prison. Michael Cohen's a good example. We're gonna do a story later about another former Trump advisor, Peter Navarro, who's gonna spend some time in prison very soon. It's amazing to me how people keep falling for Trump's lies and keep carrying out Trump's terrible deeds. Trump usually skirts any punishment while they suffer the consequences.
And there's a very good reason for that because Donald Trump is actually among the elites. And so the elites get extra privileges, extra protections, including Merrick Garland and all those prosecutors waiting 2.5 years to charge him because they thought if he doesn't run again, he's part of the elite, so we'll protect him.
Jesus.
And so, but Nada and de Oliveira and Butler and all these guys, they're not part of the elites. So they're just cannon fodder. And so Butler is objecting to that. And I would hope that at least if you believe them, that you would object to it too, that Trump treats people like this. I remember how mad I was at Clinton for how he treated Monica Lewinsky, right? It showed you his character, that he was willing to smear her and throw her under the bus, even though he knew he was lying. And the same is true of Donald Trump here. So many people go to prison, so many people have their lives ruined just so Donald Trump can lie to protect himself.